Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's Market Huddle. Most of you already know I'm Joe Lucey, CEO, Secured Retirement. Joining us this week, Tom Siomades. He is the Chief Investment Officer of Advisors Excel Wealth Management. It's an organization that we work with. We have them on retainer to help us make better decisions for you, our clients, and such. And, we're trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about this week. And well, I guess it'd be it was easy to come up with a topic here this week.
I can't imagine what we'd want to talk about this week, Joe. It's such a quiet, sleepy November Monday.
Nothing else going on. So anyways, as most of you are already aware of, we have probably the biggest election. It seems like every year or every 4 years they say it's the biggest election. But here we got the biggest election definitely that I can remember in my 26 years. It's probably the most challenging, depending on, regardless of what side you're on. Everybody, most divided type election we've had in many, many years. Lots of threats about lawsuits and civil unrest and what have you. And boy, less than 24 hours from now, I guess we're going to be right in the middle of it. Within 48 hours, we may or may not know who our next president is. We'll probably have some answers. And so this week on the Market Huddle, I welcome Tom Siomades, the Chief Investment Officer here at Advisors Excel Wealth, to kind of give us some of his thoughts. What we'll do here this week is we have about, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes worth of kind of rough content of what we wanted to cover, and then we'll open up everything for questions and take some time there. I know Tom has a hard stop here at 12:30, so we cannot go past 12:30, but we'll kind of see where this goes. And of course, everybody, if you're on the call, if you want to get back to us, if you have any questions on your own retirement planning, if you have any questions about the planning we're doing, or maybe other questions about where things are at with your own retirement planning, feel free to give us a call. I'll give you that number in a little bit, but it's 952-460-3260. With that said, how about if I start the PowerPoint here real quick so we have something to kind of guide us, although I think we only have 1 or 2 slides this week. And again, I've already introduced Tom, so let's move on to the disclaimer slide. Keep in mind that we are not CPAs. We're not attorneys. Some of the things we're talking about are going to be forward-looking. We can't predict the future. If you have questions about how any of this fits into your retirement planning, I encourage you to give us a call, and let's walk through it with a member of our team here at Secured Retirement. With that said, Abe Lincoln says, in all available ways, give the people a chance to express their wishes at these elections. And that's really what we're up against. We have an election. This is what America stands for. And I'm proud to be a part of it. I think one thing, if I forget to say this later on, I think we all should be proud to be a part of this. And hopefully you will exercise your right to vote here if you haven't already within the next 24 hours or so. So with that said, here's Tom's bio. He's former military, 30 years of investment experience as Chief Investment Officer. He works with the team at Advisors Excel Wealth Management. And as I said earlier, he's part of our team here to help you and in the structure that we do with our clients, pretty much on retainer to help us along with some of the planning decisions that we make with our retirement planning. Him and his wife, Lorraine, have a daughter and Sunday and a son, Alexander. So with that said, Tom, I am going to turn it over to you.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest things, and obviously you touched on it, Joe, and by the way, thanks everybody for joining us on Monday. Obviously I was kidding that we don't know what time it is as far as what's going on out there. But, if you haven't been inundated with election coverage at this point, you either are incredibly disciplined, don't have cable, or your internet's been out. I've been getting text all morning urging me to vote one way or another. I don't know how these people know who I am because I have a 303 cell number, which is Colorado. And most recently I lived in Pennsylvania, and now I'm in Kansas. So technology is awesome. It's out there, and it's finding ways to get at you. But I think the most important thing from my standpoint, and I'm trying not to, obviously everyone's got their preferences, as Joe said, as to who they'd like to see win this election or how they'd like to see the chips come down. I'm not in the business of predicting an election. I just have to predict what may happen if either side gains control. So, I think for the market, and I think if you look at what happened toward the end of October, you saw this massive sort of sell-off because the markets at first had sort of assumed that, Trump would win. And then all of a sudden they got used to the fact that it didn't really matter who would win because there would be the stimulus package and there would be all this money that would be spent differently, but still a lot of money that would be spent on infrastructure and other public type programs or tax cuts, et cetera, when one side or the other won. Then all of a sudden I think it was right after the debate, you had a tightening of the polls, and all of a sudden it became incredibly uncertain as to what would happen if, Trump were to get reelected. All of a sudden, the Joe Biden lead in the polls didn't seem so secure. So now you have a situation where it literally is virtually a toss-up. The biggest concern is, again, it's about policies, right? I mean, if you listen to what Trump says and what he's done, he'll tell you it was the greatest economy, lowest unemployment. We've got wonderful, great things to go. Then you have the other side, which says, he didn't really do anything and he ruined whatever good we left him with. And now we need to go in a new direction because, our country's broken, but I'm the guy to fix it. I don't know how the market processes that other than until we have much clearer policy goals from the Biden camp. I think if Trump wins, the market will be very happy because we already have a known quantity of what he's going to do. He's going to get additional stimulus. They're going to continue working on a vaccine, probably more tax cuts, and he's going to push for infrastructure spending. So, all those things the market has already had experience with. So I think it'll be a lot easier to sort of ramp that up. On the Joe Biden side, I mean, there's been a talk of, revoking the tax cuts, tax increases. Will we have a Green New Deal? Will we have fracking? What's the energy? There's a lot of unknowns there. So I think, from that standpoint, the market might be sort of a little bit shaky until those policies are clear. So that's the interim one. I mean, in the long term, they're all going to spend money. In the longer term, we're all going to, end up having to pay higher taxes in one way, shape, form, or another because, our debt is growing beyond, I think, sustainable levels. I mean, we're getting to the point where our national debt is going to more and more erode into the growth of our economy and with, just the quality of life for everyone. So shorter term, again, not to go around about it, Joe, but and I'll toss it back over in a second. But I think if Trump wins, the market is happy because it knows what's going to happen with him before, and it's going to be a continuation. And he's been a lot clearer with policies. On the Biden side, we just don't know. And then obviously the nightmare scenario would be is if we just don't have a result for any amount of time. If folks remember what Bush Gore was like in 2000, I think it was almost 5 weeks before we had a result, and the market sold off in the neighborhood of 10%. So a clean result would be nice. I think a messy result is just going to create more volatility like we saw the past couple of weeks.
Well, and I think that you do bring up a lot of good points, and I think that actually what the markets really want to see is certainty more than anything else. Going past this, that's not just a presidential election. There's also the House, there's the Senate. How important or how much do you think that decisions around majority in the House, majority in the Senate might make and the overall direction of the markets? Or do you think it's really going to come down to Trump or Biden here?
Well, I think what's interesting is what I've seen so far is there doesn't appear to be a whole lot of people that are undecided. I mean, seriously, stop for a second, folks, and think: are you really unsure of which of these two people you'll vote for at this point? I think that's been less of a trying to motivate people to choose a side versus who's going to motivate their people to come out. So that said, I think it becomes a direct referendum of whether you're willing to overlook Trump's crustiness, for lack of a better description, or bad behavior for his policies, or do you want someone who's going to be a little bit more, a little less incendiary? Although Biden has shown he's got a temper as well. So I don't know what this whole, bad behavior to good behavior. I don't think it's that black and white. Now on the Senate and on the House side, I mean, I'll tell you honestly that Wall Street and the markets like gridlock, okay? Because that means no new major programs would have the potential of making it through, the government. And so if you think about that, think about what the last big major program was that went through. It was Obamacare, right? And say whatever you want to say about that. Look at all the turmoil that caused, and it's still causing turmoil today, whether you agree with it or not. So I think a divided Congress where the House is in the hands of the Democrats and the Senate remains in the hands of the Republicans would be the Goldilocks scenario for Wall Street. That said, I mean, from what I'm seeing, for what it's worth today, it looks like that's going to be the case where regardless of who wins the presidency, there's going to be a Republican Senate and a Democrat House. That said, the margins are very tight, right? There's only about 17 seats in the House that the Democrats need to flip, and there's only 3 Republican seats in the Senate that need to be flipped for it to go to the other side. So it's anything's in play, and because already people have made up their minds, it's really just a question of do more Republicans show up at the polls, because we already had 90 million people, over 90 million people vote. So that's something that's completely new this time around as well.
Well, so if I'm looking at things here, we got about 2 hours and 45 minutes here before tomorrow of trading, and then there's going to be tomorrow, and I don't know what the markets are going to do. We're up about 150 as we talk here on November 2nd, a little bit after noon. Tomorrow, I don't know if the markets go down or up. I think it kind of depends on maybe what happens in the news headlines and what have you. But what do we do if we get to worst case scenario? If all of a sudden we all are waking up here on November 4th, lawsuits start flying, civil unrest, and this, and what have you. What should an investor be doing with their life savings that are, if the markets don't necessarily react well to the election here a day after tomorrow?
Right. So I would say that longer term overall picture, you should already be allocated in a way that isn't going to keep you up at night and not freak you out on Tuesday or Wednesday. The other thing I would say is if you're retired and you need money, you should probably have the next 3 to 6 months set aside in cash to make sure that, whatever happens, you're able to, manage with your daily bills and all that type of stuff. So I do not espouse that if you're a retired person that you have everything in the market at this point. If you're 30 years old, listen, and you got another 30 years to go before you're going to need the money, I would not look at the near-term volatility as anything to be concerned about. It's just going to be another blip on that mountain chart as markets continue to grow, year over year. I mean, look at the market, what it did from 1990 to 2020. And if you're 30 years old, that sort of should be the trajectory you're looking at, right? But now if you're in retirement age in your mid 60s and onward, I would set some money aside and just be mindful of the fact that we may have prolonged turmoil out there. I mean, we saw it this spring with the way people reacted with the whole, toilet paper hoarding and ammunition stocking up and, things like that. That can happen. And and the more uncertainty, and I think Joe put his finger on it, is that, listen, the market doesn't care whether it's a good deal, a bad deal, an in-between deal. It just needs to know what the deal is, and then it'll react to that. If we have unknown out there in an unresolved election, that's something that they can't figure out how to play that game. It's not even a question of moving the goalposts. The goalposts aren't even there if we don't know who's president, right? So if you have Democratic goalposts, maybe they're 10 yards further back, or Republicans are 10 yards further up, but at least you can gauge where that goalpost is. If you don't know who the president is, you have no idea what's coming down the pike. And that's what I think freaks the markets out the most. But I would say if you're retired, I would definitely look to have 3 to 6 months set aside just in case.
Well, we wanted to do a couple things, make sure that we're adding value here today. Number one, I want to make sure that if we do see some uncertainty, if you're able to think back to the planning that we've done for you here at Secured Retirement. Clients of ours, we've secured against market value adjustments. We want to make sure that we don't have money that's necessarily exposed to the market for the near term. If we see a pullback in the markets, we're going to give it some time to recover. My guess is this would be somewhat event driven, which means that if we do see a pullback, markets will recover as soon as there's an answer. We might not even see that pullback. In fact, I think there's just as big a risk we might see the markets kind of go gangbusters if we do get a quick result. If everything knows where, if we know who the next president is right away, and there isn't going to be a lot of the lawsuits and what have you, I think that we're going to see the markets actually perform or act really well for that. So I think pulling out of the market at this point is probably just as risky, almost as raising a lot of cash. But if you are concerned, we want to make sure we're here for you. Give us a call, 952-460-3260. Let's review your plan with you and make sure that we're all on the same page here. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to offer everybody a report that we've put together, and it's will the presidential election results impact your retirement? Hopefully that's out there. If you download that, you should be able to download the report right there. You don't have to give us an email or anything like that. Just go ahead and click it. If you have a problem with it, we're happy to make sure that we send it to you in another format, but everybody should be able to have that. With that said, Tom, I know that you've only got another maybe about 10 minutes. I think it would make some sense. Let's open up the rest of the presentation. If anybody has any questions and what have you, go ahead and ask those in the chat box there, and we'll try to address those. I'm going to go ahead and put my video back on. It's funny, Galen was talking about how she kind of felt a little bit like she wished she hadn't voted early. I was actually telling my wife the same thing. I was on my last night, I was like, I wish I wouldn't have voted early, because I kind of wish I had this November 3rd and, stand in lines and do all that. But it just doesn't quite seem the same when I voted early this year. But I don't know if anybody else feels that way. If you do, go ahead and comment on that as well. Does anybody have any questions or concerns they wanted to post in the chat group here? Here we go. No, Tom's group does not, Jay, offer an option to MPMG. We can talk to you about some different things that we have here. Tom's group is more of a consulting basis and helps us identify and do some due diligence around groups like MPMG. There's another group, and I talked to you a little bit about that, that we've recently started implementing called Sterling that we can talk about. But let's do that as a one-off, and if anybody else has questions on that, we can come back to that. But like any money manager, we want to make sure it fits in with an overall strategy and what have you. So anybody else have any kind of questions, concerns, thoughts about the election? COVID or unrest? Tom, that's actually a great question. Are you more concerned about ongoing shutdowns and COVID issues, or would you be more concerned about coming from Minneapolis here? We of course were a little closer to some of the riots than you were in Kansas, but some of the unrest that we might see, whether it's here, Philadelphia, Seattle, Portland, what have you, following the election.
Sure. So we've seen, and I've been watching over the weekend, that there's like big cities are boarding up storefronts, and I can't imagine why they would board up their storefronts if they didn't feel that there was going to be violence at the end of the election. The part that I don't understand is, like, I completely understand why, the Antifa people and BLM and people like that would be upset with a Trump victory. That's a foregone conclusion in my mind, because if you recall, when Trump won the election the first time, there was all kinds of rioting and not nowhere near as bad as what we saw this summer. But my question along the lines is like, I look at sort of kind of what the views on the left are and what they're trying to put together. I don't know that these people will ever be happy, to be honest with you. So I don't know that we may have rioting in either case, where because, you know, you're either upset that Trump won or you're happy that Biden won, but you're not going to get what you want. I mean, how else do you explain that when a team wins a national championship, the kids should be happy, but then they're throwing burning mattresses out the window? You know? So as far as the coronavirus is concerned, though, I mean, I think near term it's going to be the rioting. I think the virus is here to stay. I think the vaccine will go a long ways to making people feel better. I think the incentive that we've seen over the course of the summer for certain places to stay shut down versus opening up, like you had this, you know, tale of two cities sort of going on, and in different states opened and others didn't. I think the incentive once the election is passed is really not there. I mean, you can't keep Los Angeles locked down for the next 2 years, or New York, or Minneapolis, right? So at the end of the day, you're going to need to start dealing and living with this virus. So short term, Trump wins, you're going to probably have a fair bit of, you know, rioting. You still can have it even if Biden wins. You know, I mean, I just honestly, I don't know what these folks want, because they don't seem to be very coherent as far as what or very good at articulating what they want. They're good at being angry and burning stuff down, but what is it that you want? So, yeah. I mean, I think it'll be less if Biden gets, but I still think that it'll happen.
Well, hopefully we don't see any of that. I mean, I think that everybody should kind of pause and then, you know, spend some time with good thoughts that we don't see any of that, because I'm not sure how much it accomplishes, and we've certainly seen a whole lot of destruction just even locally here. So I agree that we some of the rioting has not necessarily helped here. So hopefully that's not something that goes forward, whoever wins here. And I think that maybe the longer it takes to find a result might actually encourage some of that. So hopefully we can kind of get solutions fairly quickly, and both parties just kind of can, whoever the losing party is, can handle that defeat, and we can move on from there. So Jack asks about how about some of these. I'll try to rephrase it a little bit for you, Jack. Some of the things like maybe a public healthcare option. How much you think that kind of legislation that would be promoting more of a public healthcare option, some of the other more socialist type things. How do you think the markets will react to that, and maybe how much of that really depends on kind of the structure of this House and Senate we were talking about earlier? Is there a chance that if one party were to win, that they don't have the House, Senate, and the presidency, that some of these more extreme legislative things on either side would even come through in the next couple of years?
Right. So I don't think, I think in the example you just cited, I don't think that happens at all, because, you know, one side is going to be clearly against the other for ramming through any kind of socialized medicine. As I'm not gonna spend a lot of time explaining why socialized medicine is not a good idea. The government, you know, by and large, is not very efficient and very good at running anything other than the military. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if the military, if there's any kind of competition that we could see anybody do it better. The government's just not good at running things. I mean, the only kind of experience I have with the government and medical care is the VA, and you know what a mess that's been. So that's all I'd say to that. But at the same time, sort of the interesting dynamic here is if you do have a sweep on the Democratic side, yeah, they will push that. But I don't know that the American psyche and the American temperament is well suited for you know, a socialized. We're just not patient people. We like to get what we pay for, and we're not going to sit there and be told that, you know, hey, I can't see you for 6 months because there's a backlog. You could do that to a soldier or to a vet because they don't have a choice. But if you have money, you're going to want to go see a doctor. And, the other problem with that is the wealthy will just continue to get good medical care because they'll be able to go to other places and get that, or have private doctors set up or things like that. And then the rest of us we'll just get shoddy healthcare. And it may look good on paper, Joe. The problem with this stuff is the devil's in the details, right? The assumption that everyone's going to be big-hearted and kind-hearted, and there isn't going to be abuse. And that's where I think a lot of people that are idealistic miss the fact that people are motivated by self-interest. Not everyone's going to be a good guy, and not everyone's going to do what's right for you. They're going to do what's right for them. And the reason that stays in check in our society is because people know they're going to get rewarded if they do something that someone else wants to pay for. That's capitalism. So
I want to try to address one more, and I'll let you kind of follow up with any questions. Jennifer asks us about any potential changes to 401ks and IRAs with either party. I want to be conscious of your time here, Tom, and I know that you've got a 12:30 hard stop. But keep in mind, Jennifer, that there was the Secure Act that was passed in December. I think that if we wouldn't have seen COVID come in into January, this would be like headline news everywhere. They've changed the inherited IRAs. When you inherit the IRA from a non-spouse, that now has to be cashed out over 10 years. There's been some proposals. I don't know how much of that was campaign rhetoric versus real suggestions about changes to the taxation around 401ks and IRAs and such. The good news is that if there are going to be changes to the IRA structure, or the 10-year payout that they just passed, I can't see them making major changes to that right away, or 401k contributions. Some of the concerns have been how much money people that are higher incomes can put into their 401k versus those that are, and trying to streamline, maybe limit the amount of money that can go into 401ks and IRAs. Good news is I think that if we see some of that, we'll have plenty of time to start planning around before the end of the year, and it's unlikely anything would change in the next 12 months. But it is something I think you should be planning around and continue to do some look-forward tax planning. With that said, Tom, anything else you want to add to the 401ks and IRAs? And then what we can do is just quickly wrap up here.
Yeah, my only concern around any kind of retirement plans and things along those lines is that when the discussion shifts from income-oriented taxation, i.e. taxes on earnings, and it shifts to taxes on wealth, that scares the heck out of me, because that tells me that people who have worked hard, paid their taxes, and set money aside for a better life or for a continued good life later, that people can come in and basically pull out the rug from under your feet and say, no. We don't care how well you planned and how well you followed the rules. You just can't have that. And that is my biggest fear for retirement plans. And that's, with some of the rhetoric, like you're right, Joe, with some of the rhetoric we heard, we don't know how much of it is going to have legs down the road, but more and more people have these plans because, let's face it, traditional pensions have been phased out, and it's harder and harder and harder for people to plan for retirement. And if you make it that much harder or disincentivize people, that's going to lead to, a lesser quality of life down the road.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you. Tom Siomades, Chief Investment Officer with Advisors Excel Wealth Management. I want to thank you again for taking some time out and joining us. Folks, if you have any questions about your current planning, we talked about a 15 to 30-minute strategy call here that's on this last slide, but anything that's keeping you up at night, anything about the next 24 to 48 hours or even longer term, give us a call at that number, 952-460-3260. The other thing is we're down to about 60 days left in the year. It's hard to imagine. We're already into November. December 31st is going to come right around the corner. If you do not have a plan in place for what to do over the next 60 days to get 2021 up and ready and roaring for you, financially wise, we want to be part of that as well. So schedule some time with our advisors here. Let's start to talk about what we should be doing over the next 60 days to make sure that we are well positioned for 2021. Hopefully 2021 is going to be a year that we don't have conversations about, that can contentious elections and COVID, and maybe we can get past all that. I doubt the COVID is going to go away, but either way, we'd love to be a part of making sure that you are well set for a prosperous and healthy 2021. So if you want to schedule some time, let's talk about what we can be doing together around your retirement planning over the next 60 days to before December 31st. With that said, I hope everybody got some value out of this. Feel free to pass this on. We'll send everybody out a recording of it, and pass this on to anybody you think would be benefit to review it. And with that said, we'll be back next Monday, noon, and the next Market Huddle. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and make sure you get out and vote.
Be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.